Welcome back, everybody. This week, man, I'm excited. We have our very first Canadian on the podcast, and Nick Espenberg has become sort of a friend, sitting on the other side of the world, and we've worked together at one stage. Phenomenal to have gotten to know Nick. And yeah, so Nick, good morning. Very super early in the morning for you, 6 o'clock. You're making this time available, sitting on different sides of the planet. And thank you so much for joining this week. How are you?
Yeah, good morning, Christo. I'm doing very well, and it's an absolute pleasure to be here with you today. So thanks so much for having me. I'm excited.
Yes, me too. And we're going to talk great stuff today. So the topics that you've chosen and you're passionate about at the moment, we all change over time, are topics that I cannot wait to get and dig into these topics this morning. So Nick is the director of Mine Technical Services at the moment, and but Nick, I'm not going to introduce you. I want you to tell our listeners a little bit about who's this guy.
Yeah, sounds good, Christo. Sure. So, I think first and foremost, I'm a husband, I'm a father, and a dad dog, but also a mining engineer, and somebody who's passionate about the industry. And I think I was always one of those kids who, I think from a very early age, always wanted to be an engineer. And just the other day, I was actually talking, to my mother, who had pulled out a scrap of paper from a time capsule that we had put in a box at, on New Year's Eve when I was 12 years old. And she read it out. Yeah, she read it out to me, and all the paper said was, my name is Nick Espenberg, and I want to be an engineer when I grow up. And I think I was 12 at the time. So
amazing.
Yeah, it's one of those things that I think I've always been drawn to engineering for whatever reason, but I don't always know that I knew what that meant. And when I finally got the opportunity to go to university, become an engineer, I started out in a general year, really not knowing what I was going to do, whether that was mechanical engineering or chemical or mining. And I remember I had a very passionate presentation by one of our professors, Tim Joseph, who just did an incredible job of selling the industry to me. And I remember, just really getting a sense of, the ability to, be able to work outside and in the office and travel the world and, get to work with some of the biggest equipment in the world. And he just did a really good job of making it sexy. And that's really what ended up drawing me to the industry. And so I kind of fell into it in that sense, but it's been a wild ride. And, I haven't looked back. And throughout my career, I've had the opportunity to, take on a number of, student jobs. So in between university years, and start off, and work my way up through an engineering training program, and been in the industry over 12 years now, and so it's been incredibly exciting, rotating through so many different roles, and even having the opportunity to travel the world and see a few different places. That's been really exciting, and kind of neat to kind of see how that's progressed over the years. So
you've certainly traveled the world, and some of that is a bit of taking a risk, I would imagine.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's been a few times where I've taken some of those risks, and I think the first.
Sorry, Nick, just to pause there, and for our listeners, so we do a little bit of prep work before the time, And when I asked Nick, what do you want to talk about? And he gave me like a few things, and we're not sure how far we're going to get into these topics because they are wonderful topics, and we'll see how it goes. And one of the first ones that Nick had up is taking big risks, and hence my question.
Yeah, yeah. No, I think it's something that is maybe a little unique to me that um, maybe like sets me apart from some of my peers in terms of some of the not even so much risks, but different opportunities that I've taken that are maybe not as common. And I think some of that isn't even big risk. Some of it's just taking on a stretch role, and so I've done that a few times. But I think one of the first big leaps of faith that I took was taking a secondment with a company I worked with who had a partnership with Engineers Without Borders, and I had the opportunity to travel to Zambia and work in a little entrepreneurial business, working with small business owners in rural Zambia, and smallholder farmers, and helping them grow their businesses, with small assets. So not necessarily mining related at all, but certainly a very different experience to my day-to-day engineering job. And I do think that took a lot of courage, and not necessarily mining experience, but so many other types of experience. I just trying to understand cultural fluency. I was in a much more entrepreneurial environment, and having to just figure things out. I got to learn some computer programming, and just understand what it takes to work in a different culture when you don't look or talk like the rest of the people. And it was an incredibly formative experience for me, and I think really helped me gain some confidence that it is possible to take these big leaps, and do something different. And generally, it will turn out okay, despite the odd struggle or failure that might be part of that too. So, yeah.
But it's not just that easy. You just, by the way, mentioned the fact that there's different cultures and different colors of skin and different languages and different diets across the world. And how difficult is it? And I mean, what would you tell a younger self that, hey, Nick, you need to think about this? Are there any things that happened that you didn't anticipate? Whoa, I didn't really realize this is going to be that difficult. Or did you just take it in the stride?
Yeah, I think there's a bit of element of ignorance that helps as well. They're just not necessarily knowing how tough some things are going to be. I think you anticipate some of it. And I'm not advocating jumping into everything blind, right? I mean, even before I went to Zambia, I did some research on the culture and the languages, and even just talk to a few people about, even things like mindset and what it takes to, from a mindset perspective, to be successful, working in a different culture. And so I think, like doing a bit of that upfront research, but at the same time, like you said, dealing with things in stride as they come, and being able to sort of solve those problems as you go. I think that's, an incredibly useful skill. And I mean, there are things you expect. I mean, you talked about, foods of the world. I mean, I think some of the sickest I've ever been has been, when I've maybe ventured out and tried something that I shouldn't have, in another country. But I mean, that's okay, right? I mean, they make for good stories, I suppose.
They do.
Yeah.
And you you also have been, there's a lot of focus globally. I guess it's now standard that you have to have a high level of emotional intelligence and EQ.
Yeah.
And when I met you and we started working together, it was very clear to me that you have a high level of EQ. Is that something that is important when you venture off and take these risks?
That's a great question. I would say yes. And I think that's something that I don't think I was certainly born with a high level of EQ, and I don't even know that it's that high now, but it is something that I, I do know is important, and something I've consciously worked on throughout the years. And some of that has been through the help of some coaches. But yeah, absolutely. When you look at, you know, trying to, integrate yourself into a new culture, especially, I think that that high level of EQ is so important because I think it's vital to understand, who are the stakeholders that you're working with, what are their personality types, how are they perceiving what you're saying, right? Because I think if you can't connect with people, I think at the end of the day, you're not going to be very effective, because it doesn't matter how smart you are or how good your ideas are or how hardworking you are, but if you can't sort of bring others along with you, and work with others, have the respect and work as a team, you're not going to accomplish much. And in the mining industry, right? I mean, this is very much a team sport.
Yes.
Most operations are hundreds, if not thousands of people. And so it really requires a lot of teamwork. And I think that higher level of EQ, certainly does help you influence and get things done within such a large team. So
Yeah. And
yeah.
when you chose this topic, Nick, anything else that was at the top of your mind when you thought, I want to talk about taking risks, big risks?
Yeah, it's a good question, and I think, some of the risks we take don't always work out, right? I've taken some big risks, which I think generally have worked out, and I'm better for them. But some of that also comes with, I don't want to say failure necessarily, but setbacks and difficulties, right? I remember taking on a bit of a stretch role early on in my career to work as a project manager, building a new surface mine ventilation system, and it was quite an expensive project, and it didn't go so well. I mean, it got done at the end of the day, and it worked, but it went over budget, and there was a lot of construction difficulties and a bit of schedule setback, and I think a lot of that was just due to my inexperience, never having managed, tens of millions of dollars, or never really having managed a construction project of that magnitude in my life. And so, sometimes when you do take a stretch role or put yourself out there, try something new, it can certainly come with struggles and setbacks, and having to sit in the general manager's office and sit there and explain why things aren't going so well and why you need more money. So it's it's never this linear path to success, that's for sure. So
but you've also always had a learning attitude, and you win some, you learn some. And would you have done it differently looking at all of this today?
That's a good question. Potentially there's things I would have done differently, but I do consider myself a lifelong learner, and somebody with a high degree of curiosity, and that I think that served me well. I don't know that I necessarily have regrets per se. I think I generally tell myself, I was doing the best that I could do with the tools that I had at the time, and what I had in front of me. But and so yeah, even those things that haven't gone well, in some ways they've helped me succeed in other projects, right? And
Yes.
the very cliche quotes, Steve Jobs quotes, you can never connect the dots looking backwards. You can only connect the dots, or you can never connect the dots looking forward, right? So yeah.
Awesome.
So
but you've mentioned also the role of coaches and mentoring in your life, and that was something that helped you, and also a topic that you're very passionate about. Want to tell us a little bit more about that?
Yeah, I thought it might be interesting to just chat about some of my personal experience, with coaching, given that, this is the mining coach. So I thought that was a bit of a fitting topic. And
yeah, for sure.
Yeah, I've had the pleasure of working with a number of coaches throughout my life, and maybe three or four, some of which I've paid my own money for to help me with. And one of those was a life coach. One was a bit more of like a management consulting coach that was very sort of work focused. And actually, the other coach that I hired was a bit more of like an expat coach when I was working in Namibia. That was sort of both a mix of personal and professional coaching. So yeah, a bit of a range, right? And I think one of the best things I did when I was younger, and I'm not even sure how I got the idea at the time, but in my early 20s, I did hire a life coach, and I think one of the most sort of profound things that I learned was just awareness of my thoughts, and really being able to be an outside observer to some of my thoughts and emotions and physical feelings, and that really helped me understand. I get to choose how I react to a situation and emotions, and that I don't necessarily have to live life on autopilot. And it really just helped bring some awareness, I think, to some of those areas of my life that I just didn't have the tools when I was younger. And I think personally that helped quite a bit, but there's also so much spillover into the professional life in the mining industry as well, in terms of our careers and how we work with people and things like that. So that I think was the first coach that I ever had, and had a very profound impact on my life. And I think the second coach that I had was it was maybe a few, but our company had hired a management consulting firm, and I had the opportunity to work with a coach who was embedded sort of within our organization for several months, and to have somebody, I think, come in and just sit in a meeting with you and observe and give you feedback after, and just talk through, okay, how did that go? And really helped sort of dissect some of the stakeholders in meetings and understand, okay, what are the key drivers of the business? And are you spending your time working on those? And how do you work with the team to make sure that happens, and really track KPIs and clearly articulate information, whether it's in a meeting or email. And so that was very powerful, to have somebody just come in and sit there and not give you all the answers and say, do this, do this, but really bring awareness to what it is you're doing, how you show up, and then sort of make tweaks to your process as you go. I think that was very valuable for me. And yeah, so it's um, been very valuable, I think, for me to just have that second set of eyes and ears to really, guide some of that decision making. And again, like my experience with coaches is, and it's frustrating sometimes because you're always looking for somebody. Oh, I need somebody to just give me the answer. And that's typically not, I think, what most good coaches do, right? It's really about helping you solve your own problems, bringing awareness to what it is that's important to you specifically, and asking those really probing questions about what it is you need to do to solve your own problems. So
I love that, because I had a very similar experience, I think, and it was mentioned in one of the podcasts where at one stage Mark Monroe got me a coach because we were building a new mine, ramping up, and I've never been involved in a new mine ramping up, and lots of new people coming in every week, and you've got different cultures and contractors and permanent employees and all of that. And he knew I didn't have those skills, and he put somebody next to me, and you can take that one of two ways. In my case, it was, well, I see you've got a need, I'll provide you with a coach. And you can say that, well, what am I doing wrong? Or he's serious about helping you in or her in being a better person, becoming better. And it is quite vulnerable when people sit next to you in a meeting and they can give you that feedback. And what would you say to somebody, going through such a process right now, where there's a coach within the organization brought in to help? How do you handle that sort of feedback?
Yeah, good question. I think it's you can approach those situations, one of two ways, and you can, I think really see it as an opportunity, or you can see it as one more thing to do, or a pain in the butt, or
yeah.
But I think if you've got the mindset that you're somebody who's open to learning, which isn't just technical skills, but also some of that the EQ side of things too, and you take the situation and see it as an opportunity to say, okay, hey, I might learn something here. I can use this as an opportunity to grow and maybe get some different opinions. And at the end of the day, I think any advice or direction or feedback that you get, it's up to you in terms of how to implement that or use it or not use it. But I think just staying open to the process and really utilizing what you've got in front of you, and just hearing what other people have to say, because it's I don't know, it's always interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the fact that you also mentioned it's in more than one area. People often ask me, I've had numerous requests over the years of people want me to mentor them, and I always say to them, I'm not your silver bullet. I cannot coach you on every aspect of career, life, family, finances, whatever that may be. And you've mentioned the same, that it's not just in mining or this life. And what would you say to that? Is there a one size fits all in terms of the coach or a mentor helping you? What's your view on that?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. And I think, yeah, I do think for coaching to really be effective, it needs to be really clear in terms of what are the focus areas, right? And I think, I've seen a number of different tools over this on this over the years, but when you dissect, your personal life and work life and understand really, okay, what exactly is it that I'm trying to do here? What's the problem I'm trying to solve? And that could be dissatisfaction with maybe how things are going at work with a colleague and some of your relationships. It could be some different skills around time management. It could be dissatisfaction with your home life. But I think really dissecting and discerning in on what exactly is it that I need some assistance with. And I think that's part of the coaching process too, is sort of that exploratory process to narrow in on what exactly do I need to do here? Because I think, and I this has happened to me too, right? Is you have this sometimes just general dissatisfaction sometimes with how things are going. And it's like, oh, I don't really know how to articulate why I'm not happy or where or where the areas of focus actually need to be. And so sometimes before you even get into coaching, I think it's really important for you and a coach to get some clarity on what's the area that we're actually trying to look at here. What are we trying to solve? And then you can, I think, work with the coach to ask those questions and solve those problems. But until you've got that clarity, I think that's tough. So yeah.
And we sometimes talk about, or we mention mentorship and coaching interchangeably. Are they the same for you? Are they different?
It's a good question. I think I've had people in my life that I would consider mentors. I've had people in my life that I would consider coaches. And in my experience, and for me personally, I think some of the coaches that I've had have been in a very focused coaching role. And it was very clear, I think, that they were the coach and I was the coachee. And there was a regular cadence of meeting and sort of a process, I think, that they would work through. And I suppose there is a bit of overlap. And I've had some mentors as well. I would say some of the mentors that I've had, some of the best mentors that I've had have been mentors that are more informal, I would say, without such a strict regiment of, weekly meetings and coaches. But at the same time, I do think whether it's, a boss or a mentor, there's elements that I think can be of coaching that can be brought into some of those situations. And it's not easy being a coach. And I think everybody likes to think that they can do it well. But yeah, I think there's some great tools there, but it can sometimes be tough. But there are some really great, coaching tools and lines of questioning that I think if a good mentor could bring to a mentor-mentee relationship or a superior employee relationship as well. So I think there's a lot of good coaching tools out there that can sort of spill over into other relationships too.
Nice. I like that. And that talks also to maybe never navigating the early parts of your career, that there's this combination of maybe coaching but mentorship as well. People that have been in the role, that have been more senior, they understand it a little bit better, and you can soundboard with them. And that's also a topic that you wanted to cover today. How do you navigate that early part of your career?
Yeah. Oh, it's a great question. And I think, I've maybe got a few thoughts on that. I think, one of the things that I look at is, how do you figure out what exactly you want to do? Because it's so hard to do, and and you're never going to typically get it figured out right away. So I think for me, and this is my experience, but I got a lot of value in terms of just trying lots of different things and understanding sort of what drew me in and what I was good at, and taking stretch roles. And so I think one of the most important pieces is really just figuring out, what you're good at and maybe what you're not, and you really only do that by trying a lot of different things and taking some stretch roles. And I think the other piece too is, and I wish I would have had this awareness when I was younger, but I feel like I wasn't a very patient person, and I feel like I was a person who was a bit of a perfectionist, and I had this desire to just try and accomplish as much as I could at a really early age, and there was this sense of pressure, right? And it's really only over the years that I've learned that patience really is a virtue, and I think it's okay to be patient, right? And we don't need to have this pressure to accomplish everything by the time we're 30 or 35, when we're starting out our careers. And you don't have to be the mine general manager at 35. That's that's a bit of a a tough thing. So I think rather, I'm not saying be complacent and stagnant, but really just be patient, right? Be okay with some of those setbacks, be okay with those learning opportunities. There's going to be frustrations. Your 5-year plan is never going to be your 5-year plan. And I think it's important just to kind of keep it all in stride. And I think if you've got that right mentality of being a lifelong learner and having some curiosity and you're able to sort of put the ego down for a little bit, it can be a very rewarding career. But having that pressure certainly doesn't help. And I wish I would have known that early in my career. It's something that unfortunately I've had to learn over the years, just to be a little more patient and go with the flow. Yeah.
Yeah. You rush to the top just to figure out why did I rush?
Yeah.
Some of the foundational stuff is not there. Why did I rush? Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah.
I had a very similar experience, but it's not about me today. But I can absolutely echo that feeling. So I think you talk a lot about learnings and failures. Are there any things that stand out for you, major learning events, call it failures, whatever you want to call it? I call it, failing forward or whatever. But if you look back at your life, and I mean, you've got a rich career in front of you still, what is it that, that stands out for you in terms of, real hard lessons that you've learned, apart from what you've already mentioned? Anything else?
Oh, wow. That's a good question. And that's a tough one, because I think a lot of what I would consider a failure at the time, whether that's a tough conversation that I've had to have with a boss, or or get some raw feedback. I look back on them now and I actually don't see them as failures. At the time, they feel like a huge failure, and it's like, wow, what have I done? But at the same time, I think looking back at them now, they're not failures. And so I think, anytime that I'm sort of navigating through a situation, and I feel one of those coming where it's like, ooh, I was not prepared for this, or yeah, I really messed this up. Whether that's I missed this calculation, or I did a bad job on this presentation, or got a raw piece of feedback. I kind of asked myself, it's like, okay, where have I seen this before? I've had these uncomfortable conversations, and looking back, they don't necessarily stand out as a failure, and it's not something that I think about day to day anymore. And it's sort of like, okay, yeah, that happened. It was uncomfortable, but I'm here. I still consider myself successful, and life goes on. So
Yeah, fantastic.
so I think, just reframing some of those, I think has been really valuable for me. But
yeah, especially, I mean, the people, our audience that are listening and watching, they are serious about their career. We are catering for, a very unique group of people. We're not talking to anybody that's not serious about their career. Those that are listening are, they want to make a success. They want to grow. They want to become the best version of themselves. They want to learn from people with less hair than them or grayer hair than them. And that's what we are doing. We're sharing our stories. And I think what you are sharing there is so fundamental to, what we go through, is that just go, get over yourself. Sometimes it's not about you. Sometimes it is, but, get out of the way, learn from it, and move on. And that's what that similar experience on my end.
I love that.
Yeah. Nick, so we didn't prepare this one, but I'll give it to you in any way.
Sure.
You are leading a technical team, and you talk a lot about, the softer side of mining, a life coach, people skills, the way to have a conversation. How important is it for technical people to have those skills? Because the reason I'm asking that is a lot of the times that the people in the technical area of mining, whether it's you're in the lab site, you're a chemist, or you are the geologist, or the ventilation engineer, or the planning engineer, they see themselves as specialists, and they can basically spend most of their time behind the computer screens and not interact too much with people. What would your advice be to people that are in that area of a mining company, and the best advice that you can give them today about what you've learned?
It's a great question. I think, in my experience, even in technical roles, there's always this element, right, of influencing other people, working with people to achieve a goal. And I think if you're not able to, whether you're the manager of a group, or one of the technical specialists in a group, I think, recognizing that you're all on the same team, and that even in an individual contributor role, there's very much a need to work with others and influence others, even if you are a technical specialist. And so I think spending time on relationships, and getting to know people, getting to know stakeholders, and understand other people's perspectives, and why they might think the way they think, is very valuable. And so I think before you even get to any of the technical stuff, I think it's important to understand, who is this, who are these people, and the mosaic of personalities that come along with that. Because I think unless you can start with really understanding with the stakeholders that you're working with, it's going to be very difficult to get anything done. And so I would encourage, anybody to spend a lot of time on the relationship side of the business and not just the technical, and approach it from a very, very genuine place. And I think that's been, I'm certainly not perfect, but I do pride myself on trying to be very genuine with people. And I think that approach has served me well in my career, because it helps build trust. And so when you look at, building trust and respect with your team members, I think that's an absolutely essential piece to working in a team, whether you're leading the team or as an individual contributor. So,
and those are words from somebody that is doing that. And Nick, I had the privilege to work with you in a team and see how you lead that team, and you are very genuine with people, and you do lead really well, and you do have very good technical skills. And so I saw that firsthand. Was very privileged. We looked long and hard for somebody to fill that role, and you were a perfect fit, despite not being in your home country. So that certainly is.
Thanks, Christo.
Is a remarkable coming from you. I really hope that our listeners are listening to this and taking that on board. It's a people game. It's an influence game, and we can do as much technical stuff as we like. We can run the numbers, we can write those reports. If we can't get people to act and do things differently, then we haven't done our jobs as technical people. So that's, I guess, that's the takeaway that I get from you here, Nick. Nick, in closure, you are a very busy man. You've waken up early, and you still still at the early part of your day. We started this at 6. So any final words of wisdom that you want to share with our audience today?
Yeah, I think, I mean, I don't know how much wisdom I have to offer, but I think, I would just encourage anybody in this industry that, it's a tough industry, and it can often be a very high pressure industry when you have day-to-day production targets. But I think it's important to, really just enjoy the process, not take it so personally when things do go sideways, and really just enjoy the ride, because it's such an amazing industry that is a lot of fun and is so crucial for our world. And I think it's I think I'm certainly privileged to be part of this community, this mining community. And I'm excited for anybody else coming up in the industry as well right now. I think it's such an exciting time, and certainly enjoy the process. So
you're doing the marketing at the end, as you started in the beginning. Somebody got you into into mining, and now you're marketing the exciting industry and an exciting career. Nick, I really thank you. Anything else before we finish off?
No, I think that's great, Christo. It's been a pleasure catching up with you again, and thanks so much for the conversation today. It's been a lot of fun.
Thanks, Nick, and you should have a fantastic rest of your week and your day. And thanks to our listeners. We'll be back shortly with a recap. Thanks a lot.
Okay, thanks, Christo.
Welcome back, everybody. So I just want to recap what I've learned from Nick today. It was a really fantastic conversation. So number one, be patient progressing to the top and enjoy the process. Number two, don't be afraid of taking risks to learn and to grow. And finally, find a coach and a mentor to help you give you perspective. That's all for this week. Thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. Keep growing. Keep enjoying your career. You can find us at www.theminingcoach.com. Make sure to give us your feedback. Send us a mail, and we are there for you. Happy mining.